Hello, and welcome to The Latest With. Today we are talking about patient experiences. We are lucky to be joined by Jonny Imerman, testicular cancer survivor and CEO of Imerman's Angels, a nonprofit that connects cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers for one-on-one peer mentoring. Jonny created Imerman's Angels after his quest to find another 26-year-old with testicular cancer. We are also joined by Holly Huber of I Love My Stem Cells, our resident MS patient. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to start with a question for both of you. What do you think was your most difficult aspect of being a patient? Jonny?
Thank you, Simone, for having us on here, and flattered to be here. The most difficult part of being a patient, and probably Holly will agree with me, because I think she's young also, is being someone who's young, who's feeling good, who's going to the gym 3-4 times a week, who's playing basketball with his buddies. You know, you're not thinking about cancer. It's the last thing on your mind, and it almost seems surreal when you get diagnosed. So I think emotionally, those first maybe couple days, definitely the first day, but the first couple days or first week, just accepting that, you know, your life is going to stop exactly where it is, and that everyone else you know is going to continue to go on, and you're going to be starting surgeries or chemos, and you're going to be in the hospital, 40 hours a week or so, is I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of young adults that get diagnosed, is the uncertainty and sort of you're just not expecting all this to happen.
So how did you deal with that? Oh.
How did I deal?
I was kind of the same way. I agree with Jonny when he said that we were so young, and I kind of was in denial. I was like, well, I listened to what the doctor said, but I'm like, okay, how am I going to attack this? And that's kind of where I went. And denial, not like I wanted to go hide from it, but I was like, I was healthy too. I was swimming. I was doing stuff. I was living life. And I was like, now what do I have to do? I have to now, figure out what's my next step. And with only 60 days, I couldn't walk. So it was really, really fast. But yeah, I think the age had a huge part to do with it. And, like Jonny had said, that we were young, and all of a sudden now we have to face what we had to do about our respective diseases. So,
well, how did you both deal with this? How did you, try to cope with this very difficult aspect?
You want me to answer that first?
Sure, yes.
I think the number one way to cope with it and to deal with it, for me, would have been to reach others who were my age, who were also young, who understood. Other people that had had the same cancer that said, look, buddy, I've done this before. I'm also in my 20s. Of course, you're alone. You feel like you're the only guy in the world. You have no idea where you're going. But this is the road ahead. Here's the roadmap. Reaching somebody like that would have been great. I couldn't find it, and that was the impetus behind Imerman Angels and building this one-on-one peer network. But how I did cope the best was really feeling the support and love from family and friends. And my mother was there every minute, every chemo, every surgery. My brothers were great. My friends were great. I was never alone. I really leaned on the people that I knew loved me and would be there for me regardless. And I was lucky to have that, because as time went on during treatments and chemos and surgeries, and you spend a lot of time in the cancer clinic, you see so many people who fight cancer every single day alone, without family, without friends, without a parent to sit there with them and talk to them. And it shouldn't be that way.
How do you try to express your experiences as a cancer survivor and MS patient to non-patients who may not understand?
I think that no matter what you go through in life, no matter what disease it is, whether it's cancer or it's multiple sclerosis or, anything that, we come across just in life, I think that support, I think like Jonny had touched, that his family was a very big support group for him. Me as well, my family was there, friends, as I made them understand, and not made them, but as I explained to them, one time and then 2 times and 3 times what I was going through, my very close friends that knew me and knew my personality and could tell my demeanor was changing. As they understood that, they changed how they looked at any disease and how they respectively interacted, not with just me, but then with other people through, and this has been going on for me for 6 years, how they interact with other people with diseases. And I think that's a key, so that they understand.
So what was one of the most heartwarming parts of being a patient?
You want to take that one first, Tally?
Sure. Oh, do you want me to? Oh, I know for me, I actually had stem cell treatment done outside the country. And when I came back, more people than I ever imagined wanted to know about my experience. And I never thought I'd be this stem cell advocate or patient advocate. And it's transcended just not stem cell patients or people with multiple sclerosis. I'm now talking on a daily basis to people with Parkinson's disease, with parents with kids with Alzheimer's or with autism, to cancer patients. I mean, I have cancer patients contact me all the time, and I've never had cancer. I don't have that experience, but as a patient, they know that the trials that you go through and the obstacles, just being a patient in general, going to a hospital, whether it's on an hourly basis or a daily basis or a monthly basis, is a process. And I think that, going through that I've now have a drive, something to do. I know that Jonny connects people one-on-one, which I think is a great resource. I think people need that. I just have decided that I answer my phone and I answer the emails and I listen to people. And that's what I do. And I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing in life. And I'm supposed to help people get through their tough hours, their tough days. And that's what I'm doing.
Jonny, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Holly, I think you're awesome, first of all. I think it's great that people lean to you that didn't even have MS, that have other challenges like diabetes or cancer. But you're right. They know that you know the trials. They know that you understand what it's like to have to go to the hospital again and again and again. And they know what it's like to have to ask questions and learn and research. I mean, all those skills and that knowledge, you're sharing that with people. I think that's awesome. So I'm a huge believer, just like Holly said, in the power of those who are farther down the road. How do we give back? How do we mentor? How do we share? How do we inspire and motivate and encourage those that are in treatment today? That's what survivors can do. And obviously someone like Holly who's thriving and living strong and happy and smiling, or survivors like myself or our team of survivors, we have so much to give back. And that's what I think is so critical, sort of the duty of those that are farther down the road to help those that are new and rookies and don't know what to ask. And to answer your question all the way, Simone, the most heartwarming experience for me was probably all the love from family and friends. In some situations, I felt love from people that I thought were just acquaintances that I kind of knew growing up and, had drifted apart for whatever reason, for no reason, but they'd come back and shown how much they cared about me, or my parents or my family. I moved in with my mom during 8 months during chemos and had an 11-inch surgery through my stomach to remove 4 tumors behind my kidneys next to my spine. And the love from people that really care about you, that's the most heartwarming thing, is how many people are really in your corner when the chips are down. And that's what life's about to me. Nobody's life is perfect. Nobody's life's without problems. Everyone has challenges. But it's very revealing, the people who really love you and are going to be there for you. Those are the people you want to surround yourself with.
How does the general public respond to your experiences with cancer?
With my experiences with cancer, I hope the general public understands and relates, at least on some level. And I think most of the time they do. There's 1.5 million Americans every year diagnosed, new cases in America with cancer. 1.5 million. So everybody knows somebody who's either recently diagnosed, who's fighting cancer today, or who's a survivor. Almost everybody's touched by it. And I think that's a big piece in people relating to cancer survivors, and the ones who are open and willing to share their experience and say, this is what chemo was like. And I got cystic acne on my face during chemo because my body was whacked and my thermostat was all over the map. You're having hot sweats and cold sweats, and you're hot, you're cold, and you have neuropathy in your fingertips, and you're swelling. All the side effects that are crazy that go on during all this very atypical and chemo. It's not a normal treatment really. And I think by sharing that and opening that up, other people out there know others who've gone through something similar and relate. And I think common ground is a key in the cancer world, so that we all understand. We all know somebody's been touched by it. And it's all about how we work together to help more people get to that finish line.
Changing gears, a question from the chat. What brought the cancer to your attention before your diagnosis?
So what brought it to my attention?
Yeah, like why did you go see the doctor?
Oh, how was I diagnosed? Great question. I was diagnosed in a very atypical way for testicular cancer. For testicular cancer, 1 in 10 people, 1 in 10 young men, I should say, it tends to be a young man's cancer, feels pain in the testicle. So 9 out of 10 feels zero pain. I was that 1 in 10. And mine was early stage 3, early late stage 2, so my cancer was somewhat advanced and, I had to do chemo. If I had caught it earlier, I would not have to do chemo at all. But I had pain. And one day on a Saturday night, I was out with 3 guys and 3 girls. I was 26 and I was in Ann Arbor. I had a bunch of friends up in grad school there and we were shooting pool and all of a sudden like a light switch, it was like bam. And I know you're both women, but for the men out there listening, I know they can relate. But you can understand, I'm sure. And it felt like literally someone had taken a needle and stabbed me directly right in the testicle. Like that's what it felt like. And it turned on like a light switch, and the light switch that stayed on. The pain didn't go on and off, it stayed on. And after that pain, I doubled over. I couldn't even stand up straight. Dropped the pool stick. I was at a 45-degree angle or 90-degree angle. I couldn't even stand up straight. And so, my friends were like, let's drive you to the hospital. Let's get you there. Eventually I got to the hospital, but without that, I may not be here. I was lucky that the pain alerted me there was a problem. But young men shouldn't wait for the pain with cancer. And any man or any woman with cancer should know to go in once a year, once every 2 years, get a blood test, have a doctor look at you. I foolishly hadn't been to the doctor in about 4 or 5 years as a 26-year-old, and that's just foolish. We need to teach people and educate that if I would gone in and got tested, if this cancer was showing up in the blood, we could have found it earlier. And for sure, I would have saved my life. And other people need to know that.
Well, that seems to be a problem with healthcare in this country because we're not encouraged. We're one of the only countries that people aren't encouraged to go to the doctor. They aren't encouraged to, get annual checkups because it's prohibitively expensive. But how do both of you think that healthcare in this country could improve from a patient's perspective?
That is such a huge question to tackle. It really is.
Yeah, it is, and we're running out of time.
It's one of those things where I think that, like Jonny said, I was young too, and I don't want to say I ignored some of the symptoms, but no, I had been misdiagnosed for about 5 years. All sorts of different things, and I was working and I was enjoying life, and I didn't pay some attention to certain things, and I'm like, oh, I'll take care of it tomorrow. And then in my case, it's different with cancer. With multiple sclerosis, it comes and goes sometimes, and I wasn't paying attention all the time. And when I did, I was like, oh, I'll go to the doctor tomorrow, and then all of a sudden tomorrow I felt better, and so I didn't have, and I was going to these other doctors, and they couldn't, with me, I was misdiagnosed. They couldn't find what was causing some of my symptoms right away, and I don't want to say pushy enough. I use the word self-advocate now, but I wasn't pushy enough because I didn't want to disrespect the medical profession. I didn't want to respect these doctors that I was going to try to find and get referrals to. I think that medical is daunting. I think the process of going and I don't care if you have insurance, if you don't have insurance, if you have good insurance, if you have no insurance, if you're a student, it's just a huge process. And I think that, I think what Jonny's doing is absolutely remarkable, like bringing people together, because I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. I really didn't. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm young. I've got to figure out what to do next. My boyfriend was really great to listen, but he was anxious too. What do we do? Who do we talk to? And I think that's a huge problem with the medical profession. You go, to check in, and their goal is to take care of your need at that time, at the best that they can with what they're dealing with, but it's not maybe always the right direction. And I think it's just huge. And I don't think that there's any one way to go about it yet. And I don't think there's an answer. I just think we have to all become self-advocates, lean on other people to learn how to do that.
Do you have anything to add, Jonny?
Yes, that's. Well, thank you, Holly, for your kind words. What you said about what we do, and you obviously are doing it the same. You're doing it for people with MS. You're doing it for people outside of MS that come to you and say, "Look, you understand the system." That's just those of us that people like you and me are more knowledgeable. We've learned that the system takes a little pushing. You can do it in a polite way, but you got to push. You got to be strong. And if you want to get your CAT scan results back Instead of a week, you want to get them back tomorrow or the next day because you know it could be earlier. You want to know, then you call every day. I mean, you and I learned those lessons. It's okay to check in a lot, and you can move quicker. But that's valuable information. I agree to give back to people that don't know that because they're new to the system and they're scared and they're alone and they don't speak the language yet. So, but about the healthcare system itself, I'm a believer that every single person in this country should have access to healthcare. Every time I speak to a 19-year-old kid who's got brain cancer, who's in college, who's trying to pay for his own college, and he's terrified more at the bills that are going to mount up and how he's going to get out of the debt than he is dealing with the brain cancer, there's a problem there. And I'm not a doctor, and I don't know how to solve it exactly to keep the quality of healthcare high. Of course, we all want high-quality healthcare, but I think the onus is on us that we treat every person in this country and give them the opportunity to be treated in a timely fashion and be treated with quality care. And I think there's a way to do it, and we got to figure that out. And it's going to take the patients like Holly and myself, and it's going to take the healthcare providers, and it's going to take insurance companies, if that's the way that the system's going to stay with the insurance companies, and figuring out a way that nobody gets left behind. But I mean,
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. You know, I think there's a big disconnect that people are getting left out. And I think living in the United States of America, living in an industrialized nation that we live in, I don't think that anybody should go without. And we have access to the best facilities, the best drugs, the best medical treatment, and not everybody can get it. And I don't think that's right. And I don't have the answer either. I wish I did. I get that asked all the time. I'm sure you do too, Jonny. I don't know, but I'm hoping that as we continue our journey to, you know, mutually, that we're going to figure it out and maybe help the bigger guys figure it out with us, and for people that are leaning on us for support now.
I have a question in a different regard for Jonny. Jonny, how did you cope with losing a part of your body?
Sure. You know, losing, I'm very comfortable, so please ask me anything you the first step of my
losing
cancer.
one of your testicles.
One of my testicles, yes. I mean, there's nobody, I don't think, more open about their life and their life with cancer and all the above than myself. So, you know, I was 26, of course, the first step when I got diagnosed, and I had to cut the left testicle out. That was the first step. It's kind of a no-brainer with anyone with testicular cancer. That's natural. That's what happens. There's really no way to save it, which is good. You know, I was very happy to get that part out. I never really missed it. I'll be very honest and direct. For me, I'm 26. All of a sudden, I've got cancer, and they're telling me it's starting to spread up into my pelvis and stomach, and I'm going to need chemo. And I wanted it out. I never thought about it like that's something I really want to keep, or ask the doctor, is there a way that I can keep it and still remove the cancer? To me, it's a body part. It's got to go. Fortunately, we're given two. I have my right testicle, and you know, I can tell you sexually and physically, everything is exactly the same, except for if you put your hand there, you feel one instead of two. I mean, it's exactly the same. Feels the same. What comes out is the same. Everything's the same. Nothing's different. It's just there's one, not two. And I think at 26, I was confident enough in my body, and I had been through multiple relationships with different girls. I was old enough and educated enough to know that girls really aren't interested in that part of the body at all. In fact, they're disinterested, maybe to some less is more when you're talking about the testicles. And so the reality is that to me, I never missed it for one day. I will say this, though. We have talked to young guys who've had a much harder time emotionally, and I respect it and understand it. It's usually the younger guys that are maybe 16, 17 and haven't been, sexually active with a woman yet or with someone yet, and they're terrified that a girl will never want to date them because they have one testicle and not two. And one in particular guy, I remember telling me the night before he had the testicle cut out, he slept the whole night clutching in his hand the one testicle that was going to get cut out, and crying because he was so scared and so nervous, and that was a part of his body, and he couldn't believe it was going to be cut out of him the next day. So I respect that, and he still went on with the surgery, of course, which was the right thing to do, to save his life. But it can be emotional for some people. For me, I mean, maybe it sounds very logical. I looked at it and said, this is bad, this is cancer, it's got to go. The big picture is life, and I want to live, and any body part I would chop off That's what you need to do to live. And you find a way to be happy without it.
Jonny, I know it's after 5. I know you have to leave soon. So can you answer one more question, or can you stay a little longer?
I can stay a little longer. Yeah, we're okay.
Well, how do you think your experiences as a patient have changed your life in both good ways and bad ways?
My experiences as a patient, the number one way it's changed my life is it's taught me and shown me and spotlighted a need in the cancer world that wasn't being met. It wasn't met for me, and it needs to change and needs to be met for other people who fight cancer alone and can't find survivors. And it's completely changed my life. And I had a relapse about a year later. So I went through it twice, 26 and 28, and that's when I had an 11-inch surgery to remove 4 tumors by my kidneys. So for me, it got nailed into my head pretty good what was missing. And that was, I had the best mom, I had the best friends, I had great doctors, a lot of love and support, but I couldn't find somebody who was a survivor, who'd beaten the same thing, who was also an athlete, who was also in his 20s, who could look me square in the eye and say, look, buddy, I understand exactly what you're going through, because I sat in that same chair and I stood in those same shoes, but I beat that cancer. And I'm 3 years out, and now I'm back in the gym, and I'm going to work, and I'm living strong, and I'm dating a girl, and I'm normal, and life's better than it was before cancer. And that's what I think people need in the cancer world, and that's what it showed me. And after I beat it, I vowed that I would do something to make the cancer world a better place for those that are fighting cancer today. So I started recruiting survivors and getting them to join me in a network called Imerman Angels. The angels being mentor angels, survivors who come back to be a peer mentor one-on-one to help somebody else with the same thing. And every day, Imerman Angels searches the globe, finds people in California or Tulsa or Maine who are fighting cancer, any type, or alone. And we look at our network and we say, we know somebody that maybe lives in London, but she's your age and she beats your cancer. And she beat it at the same stage level with identical treatments. And you got to know her because she knows a lot. And she's living proof you can do this. So keep your chin up. She's your big sister. She'll get you to the finish line. Take her lead. And that's what Imerman Angels is all about. It's about one-to-one peer mentoring. Survivors got to share. We got to give back. Just like Holly mentioned, we've learned a lot about the system. We speak the language. We know some tricks of the trade. We got to give that back. If we don't share what we know, essentially that information is wasted.
Holly?
For me, I think it's along the same lines. I think that, being a patient of any kind, you figure out what's important. It kind of prioritizes life a little bit differently. I think that in my case, I'm more patient, I'm more understanding, I'm more compassionate. I was irritated at first. I was very angry that I had to deal with my disease and deal with the process and deal with people not understanding. So through this, I have become more tolerant and more passionate and just more understanding. And so that's why I take the time and I listen to people and I never cut anybody off. And, they apologize for wanting to, to talk to me, and a 15-minute conversation will turn into an hour and a half. And I'm okay with that if I have the time for the day. But I think that's important. I think that's how we get strength to get through to the next level, to get to the next day, to get to the next fight, whatever we have to do. When you're in a remission, you're feeling great. And then when it comes back, you've got to, fight again. And that's with anything. And I mean, that's how it's changed my life. It's basically made me understand people at a different level.
Well, we have a question from the chat. Somebody asked, how has some sort of spiritual thing helped you to deal with your diseases in any way?
Wow, that's a heavy question. That's a heavy question. I'm not going to say I was a religious zealot by any means. I wasn't overly religious. I was raised, I believe in God. I believe in a bigger power. Did I go to church every week? No. But I believe that there's something bigger than me out there. I, at one point, I was in a very dark place. And I, basically had to say, give me a reason to wake up tomorrow morning. God, whatever you want to call the bigger power that is, please give me a reason. And I was serious. I was in such a dark place. I didn't know how I was going to wake up the next morning and keep fighting. And for me, I actually had the answers the next morning, and it was within 9 months that I could walk again. And it wasn't a miracle. By the means that you see it on TV where somebody puts their hand on your head and you can walk again. But there definitely was some spiritual power behind it, without any doubt in my mind. But that's a heavy question. So that's in my case. That's how it prevailed for me.
And I will say, for me, I'm not a tremendously spiritual person either, Holly. So I sound a lot like you too. I believe in God as well, and I believe in the power of prayer as well. But I don't go to temple or church. Kind of a mutt. My mom's Jewish, my dad's Christian, so I don't really. The religious piece wasn't as strong for me. For me, what helped guide me through it was the faith and just knowing that, believing in the power of good, and believing that if I were to survive one day and get through this, I will do something to come back to help these other people that fight cancer. That was really my rock that kept me focused on beating it and gave me a purpose, because once I discovered what the missing piece was, especially, I'm like, wait, when this thing's done, if I get to beat this thing and I get my life back, I'm going to share my story, and I'm going to give public speeches about it, and I'm going to make a dent in the cancer world and make it a better place. And it got me fired up. And that's our goal now, is to get more cancer survivors fired up and more people that want to really share and give back. But I'm much more of a spiritual guy, and holding on to the power of good and being able to help people. And even during my own treatments and chemos, I started walking into random rooms when I would see somebody down the hall, alone in their own room on chemo, fighting cancer, and look depressed. And I would walk in and say, hey, what's up, buddy? I'm Johnny. What kind of cancer you got? I got testicular cancer. I just had my testicle cut out. And just having conversations with people. And I knew that over time was going to be my calling, that helped me stay focused on the positive and knowing that I had something really to fight for.
So there's been I think there's some clinical trials in the works that state that patients that are positive have a better prognosis. I know that we can't do a trial with both of you, but how do you think, being a patient, how do you think that mood or positivity helped you, and do you think that it did?
With me, without a doubt. I believe in that. My personality by nature is I'm a happy-go-lucky person. I'm always like, the glass is full all the time. It's never even close to becoming empty. That's just me by nature. Did that help me do better? I 100% think so. I've talked to so many patients with so many different things that they're battling, and I think attitude has a lot to do with it. If you're going into something, I don't care what kind of fight you have, if you're going into it and you're negative and you just can think of only the worst, which is hard, because with anything you're going through, it's tough. Pain and, and all of the stuff that comes with it, and it's hard. But I think a positive outlook, a smile, a laugh. I, smile all the time, and that's really me. And I think it makes a world of difference. And I do think that if they could do some type of trial or some type of study, would they show people with better attitudes and more positiveness and a glimpse of happiness, do they do better? I think so.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Holly. I think it's a huge part in fighting any challenge in life is we got to visualize outcomes. We got to think like a survivor. You got to believe you're going to walk out on your own 2 feet one day, a healthy guy, and you're going to get back in the gym and you're going to play basketball, get with your friends, or lift weights, or whatever you want to do, or find a girlfriend. Whatever it is, that you can do it. And I think the power of the mind and visualizing is a huge piece. I don't think we can ever underestimate that piece. And you're right, there's more and more empirical data, empirical evidence coming out showing that people that think more positive and believe they can overcome challenges are doing better in the clinic and are surviving cancer more. And I think that there's absolute correlation there. That there's a cause and effect, let's say that, in addition to correlation.
One more question that I have here is, what was your most humbling experience being a patient?
Can we go first? Okay, I see my face, so I'll go first. The most humbling experience for me was seeing other people in the clinic who were fighting cancer, who couldn't really get up out of bed. And here I was, sick and nauseous and throwing up, but walking with my IV pole. And I knew I was young, I was stronger than most, I was 26, but seeing some people that didn't look as healthy or looked, just did not look well. To me, it was very humbling. You know, it prevented me from ever thinking for a second, why me? Because I think why me is not a very productive attitude when you get diagnosed with cancer or you're fighting something like MS. You know, why any of these people? Why this, 23-year-old girl next door to me getting chemo who's got brain cancer and has an awake craniotomy, tomorrow morning? Why her? Why any of these people? And to me, the same attitude with the testicle was cut it out and move on, and the same thing with cancer. It was startling and I was shocked in the beginning, of course, but at a certain point I got to the point and I said, you know what, it is what it is, move on, let's focus on solutions. If there is a problem, let's get through it. But it was humbling for me to see so many people in the fight and so many people fighting for their lives and so many spouses and so many moms and so much children looking at their parents fight cancer, and just see how it can rip a family apart. And it just, to me, reinforces the need that we got to do something. Survivors have to unite. Healthcare providers have to work together. Cancer partners got to work together. We all gotta team up to make it better. So nobody has to fight this thing without support and without inspiration, without hope.
Holly?
I think our experiences are so close. It's scary, actually. One of my most humbling experiences, one of my drugs that I was on was given in a chemo center, and so there was a woman with her daughter sitting next to me, and she was sobbing quietly, so her daughter couldn't see, and I can't remember what type of cancer, but basically the prognosis wasn't good. And she was looking at preparing her family for their little girl to die. And I was like, okay, I have nothing to complain about. I don't care that I had to, use a wheelchair to get into my treatment, that I couldn't drive a car, that I couldn't do anything. Because at that point, when you're a parent looking at losing your child, it's like, and being told that that's going to happen, I couldn't even imagine. I had nothing to complain about ever. I don't care how bad my days were. And there were bad days when I couldn't swallow, when I didn't know how I was going to actually sit up. I couldn't talk. But again, looking at somebody with their child, very humbling. And it made me think, okay, how could I console her? I had no idea what she was going through except what I could visually see and the people I was around for 2 years taking this treatment that I was taking. But again, it gave me a different perspective and a better understanding and compassion. I just couldn't even imagine having to go through that. So, and what I was going through was absolutely nothing compared to what she was doing. So,
Jonny, how can people get involved with Imerman's Angels?
Sure, thank you for asking. We want to make more connections and more friendships and more, so no one fights cancer alone. Get more survivors involved. Our website is www.imermanangels.org, which is IMERMAN angels.org. And you can always call us at 866-IMERMAN or 312-274-5529. Yep, there's our website. And anyone, any cancer, any stage level, anywhere in the world, no matter how rare or how common the cancer is, if you're alone fighting cancer or you know someone, send them to our website. They can sign up online. They click Get Support, create a profile. Our staff calls them right away. And then we look through an amazing network of over 4,000 cancer survivors to find you the best person to be that mentor. And if anyone knows a survivor out there who wants to give back, who wants to share their story, who's an inspirational person, please send them to our website. They click Give Support and they get registered as a survivor, because maybe next month another person in Maine will call us and they need to know that person. They need their friendship and their knowledge, and Imerman Angels will make sure they're connected.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to share before we end? And we know you have to go.
Yes, thank you. That's it. I mean, the last thing I want to say is awareness drives the bus. So if we can tell more people about us, and I thank you, Simone, and for helping us, and Rajan for getting the word out. But awareness drives everything, because we can't help anyone we can't reach. But it's all free, and we just want to connect all the dots across the board in this entire cancer world. And the last shout out I want to give is to Holly. I think you're awesome. I think it's great that you spend so much time on the phone talking to people with MS and even with cancer. I think that's great, because people like you and I have been down this road before, and we've learned a lot. And I think we need to get more of us like us sharing our stories. I mean, that's, I think, the meaning and purpose, and why we're challenged by things like cancer and MS. So definitely keep in touch, Holly. If you wouldn't mind somehow even sending a joint email to both of us, we'd love to keep in touch. And stay well.
You're going to be, you're going to be a resource to me now, because like I said, I have cancer patients. I just 2 days ago was talking to somebody who was talking about their fight with cancer. And I'm going to use you as a resource now. And I would love to connect with you off air and do this for sure, and become a friend. This is what it's about. So I definitely look forward to talking to you more.
That's awesome. Same here. Thank you. We'll help every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. I've enjoed it. I hope you have. So
time. Of course, this is a great format. We love this. So.
Well, tune in next time for our next segment on the latest with. We're working on what our next show is going to be. So tune in next time.